We've been talking a lot about 12.1 and everything, but what about 13.0? That's right, the grand finale of the World Soul Saga. And I've talked about how really it's going to determine whether or not this entire three expansion single storyline thing is really worth it or not. Was it a success or not? It's going to really depend on how the story ends and how the Last Titan finishes everything off. 5 things that WoW The Last Titan must get right. Let's check this one out here from Marcellian.
Last Titan might be World of Warcraft's last chance. That has to be the most meta content creator title or phrase put in a WoW video ever. And we here at Marcellian and Flame stand proud as clickbaiters, master of the baiting of clicks, or master Midnight is a weird expansion. On the surface, it seems to be WoW's best expansion since Legion, and in the top 5 at the very least. Yet somehow these content creators keep making these weird Warcraft isn't Warcraft. Where are the Amani? Guild Wars is killing WoW. Amani should have been playable, and Blizzard...
Amani should have been playable. I mean, there's no argument there. Anybody who says otherwise is just being a shill. They should have been playable 100%. Easiest W ever that Blizzard is refusing to take.
Blizzard needs to add Amani as a playable race type videos everywhere, which got me thinking, if we could play as a two-headed ogre character, would we need the 2 names abbreviated with an apostrophe? No, that's not it. But rather, what is missing from WoW? And after more than 2 decades, what does the end of an era expansion supposed to have? Well, here's a list of 5 things Last Titan needs to silence the critics, and a bonus honorable mention, 6th thing that I absolutely despise, that I wish never gets added into the game, that almost everyone else seems to want, that will likely 100% happen.
Oh, I wonder what that is. I will say one of the 5 things before I watch this has to be the story. It has to have a great story. If you're finishing off a saga that's taken 3 expansions to tell, even longer, I mean, honestly, we've been having World Soul hints since freaking BFA. So this has been going on for quite a while, and this is supposed to be like the grand crescendo. Like the end of an era, the end of basically WoW version 1, and we're going to reset almost into a WoW version 2 after this thing. So yeah, it's got to be a good story. If the story falls flat, you could still have good dungeons, good raids, and fun seasons and playable content. But really, I think a big determining factor is going to be how good is the story in The Last Titan. Yeah, you're joking. The Tinker class is number 1.
Number 1, the Tinker class. Conversations around new classes have been going on since WoW started over 20...
I mean, I don't know if this is a requirement, but I talked about it the other day. Yes, there is, conversations that Titan Tinkers might be coming. This might be a thing. And, I mean, I'd welcome it because the Tinker class is easily a 4-spec class. You got tanks. You'll have a healer one with healing bots. You'll have a range DPS one with turrets and shit. And then you could have a melee DPS one where you're just up there fighting. Obviously, you got your tanking version too, which is your full-on mech suit, which people will freaking love to do and might encourage people to actually try tanking. So I'm down for Tinkers. I won't play as one, but I do think they'd be a good add to the game.
Years ago, we have had necromancers suggested, bards, blood mages, and spell breakers, and so on. And yeah, all of those would be dope as all hell to be added into the game, but really, no class stands out to make more sense than the Tinker. Last Titan comes with a revamped Northrend that is likely the staging ground for our last fight with the Titan Pantheon,
right.
Sargeras, Illidan, and Iridikron. Part of the connection we will have with this cosmological fight will undoubtedly happen through Ulduar. Think about it. Ulduar is a Titan facility that we essentially cleared off of Yogg-Saron's influence in Wrath of the Lich King.
Sure.
And kind of freed the Titan constructs within. Now, whether they will ally with us is unknown. We know for a fact that we have a pull on them, seeing as how the Earthen of the Isles of Dorn are already on our side, and they are Titan constructs too.
I mean, yeah, Ulduar, it's an easy bet. Yeah, Ulduar is definitely going to be relevant. Is it going to be the final raid? I don't know, but it's the biggest Titan facility in all of Azeroth, so it's for sure going to matter.
Know that humans and dwarves are evolutions of Titan constructs with free will now. So whatever ends up happening, Ulduar being at least a player hub makes a lot of sense, and it is likely already a plan set in motion. What does Ulduar...
It could be the player hub. That's a big conversation too for the Last Titan, is what the player hub is going to be, because we're going back to Northrend and we've watched like 5 videos about this already, like different places where the player hub could end up. And it's all because Dalaran was our player hub previously when we went to Northrend, and it's gone. So what's going to be the player hub? My vote, a Vrykul based city. Give me a Viking inspired city. I'd love it. But there's been a conversation about Ice Crown Citadel, Naxxramas, Ulduar, like all these Dragon Blight. I don't want the one Dragon Blight one, but we'll see. Definitely a lot of choices Blizzard has, but we don't know what it's going to be yet.
Or have tech, a lot of Titan tech, or generally technology altogether. How will we use this tech in our fight? Who can wield it best? Is it just going to be an add-on to engineering, or will we actually incorporate it in the player experience? Obviously the latter, and obviously it has to come with the Tinker class. Gazlo, Gallywix, Mechatork, and literally every Earthen and Mechanome are essentially almost, if not outright, Tinkers. I'm going to use Project Ascension footage for this, since they did a better job at giving people a playable Tinker class, despite us not really recommending you to check it out. Side note, Project Ascension is against the terms of use of Blizzard that we know, and we don't really condone it. We do recognize they seem to get Warcraft better than the WoW team 90% of the time, however, which is ironic. With that being said, the Tinker class has been explored for years, with a tank spec that can use the big mech model, for which we have so many mounts already in the game, a DPS spec with turrets and bombs, a concept in Warcraft that has existed from Warcraft 2 with Goblin Tinkers, Warcraft 3 with an actual Tinker hero, Heroes of the Storm with Gazlo as having pretty much everything I mentioned so far. And last but not least,
if you remember King Mechatork in the BFA Broken Shore cinematic, where he's in the mech suit, he's pressing the buttons and he's shooting the shit, I really thought that we were going to get like, it's like, oh man, Blizzard's hinting, we're getting Tinkers. Like, this is a full-blown mech suit fight in a rendered cinematic. This is going to be cool. And we never did. But, I mean, that's basically the class fantasy people want to play who actually want Tinkers.
WoW, with Mechatork being the coolest Tinker fight in battle for the Zara lore, and Gallywix being the most recent inception of this. Lastly, the third spec could either be a melee boxing DPS like Gazlo and Heroes of the Storm, or a healer with healing kits, surgical instruments, and other first aid mechanics we can definitely think more about, given that we would have enough time. The groundwork has already been laid, and the W is out there for Blizzard to claim it. We just need gnomes, goblins, and earthen to get onto it and let us use them as the Tinker races.
Yeah. I didn't think about earthen being a Tinker class, but yeah, they certainly could be. New leveling.
Something a bit more abstract that has been obvious with Midnight is that the new player experience is turbo ass. Despite classes and general gameplay being simplified, a new player coming to WoW has no idea what the fuck is going on in the game. Again, this is not a new topic, but now with Midnight making the game mechanically approachable to a wider audience, it would only be fitting to give interested players a good point to start as WoW reaches a massive turning point in its lifespan.
This is a problem with WoW for sure, and this Blizzard changed up the starting story and zone with Dragonflight. That's kind of where you start now in terms of expansions as a new player, and then you go on from there into the World Soul Saga. But I do think they're not going to touch it until post-Last Titan. Post-Last Titan, I think we're getting like a kind of full reset of story and everything else, return to the basics, back to the forest fighting gnolls kind of stuff. And I think then they will reset the starting experience for new players to where they don't need to know everything that happened before. That's done, right? We blasted off the Titans, we jerked off Azeroth, everything that happened, and that's in the past, and now we can start building up on new stories. So that's why I think like the starting player experience, that'll get its full refresh and revamp post-Last Titan.
Two main things need to be addressed as far as new players are concerned. Something the community has pointed out for years, and so far Blizzard has approached with a half-measure attitude. Leveling needs to be revamped. Period. I could spend 30 more minutes talking about this since there are so many things that can be done. But the actual issues are, 1, it is absolutely pointless for the game in the grand scheme of things, and 2, does not smoothly tie into any expansion no matter how you do it. The reason it is pointless is because it's not actually teaching people how to play their class. Every character while leveling is either absurdly overpowered to the point that you can be a naked tank and not die, not actually teaching people how to play that role, but also every spec is designed to function at max level. The talent revamp is absolutely ass for an RPG class progression standpoint. No level up is meaningful enough because certain abilities and passives just make no sense until you unlock the full thing. The game just isn't designed for non-max level characters. The second issue is that a new player has no idea about the story of the game, which is seemingly pushed into the leveling process.
The story needs a reset a little bit. I mean, there's just too much right now for somebody who's new to the game. Definitely.
Through Chromie Time. Exile's Reach has no connection to any part of the story for endgame, nor does it explain why the characters in it are important at all. Choosing a Chromie Time that's not Dragonflight, an expansion built on 30 years of Warcraft lore and half as many retcons, does not help players understand the story of the chosen expansion, since you reach max level way before completing the story and then pushed out of the Chromie timeline. Because leveling is pointless for the current expansion's gameplay, it needs to be rushed to get players to experience the new expansion. And because it is rushed, you don't get to experience the past expansion story of how the world got to the point where you need to care about Illidan, Xal'atath, Sargeras, and the Titans, and Iridikron.
Right, and those are like all the things he just named are going to be very relevant in The Last Titan. All those guys are going to matter. So if you don't know who any of them are, even if the story's good, it's going to fall flat when you get to it because you're going to be like, who's that guy? Who's the shirtless guy with the hooves for feet? Huh? And why does he look so angry all the time? I don't know. Is he blind? I have no idea. Is this a cripple that everyone's angry at? Maybe. But you don't know who he is, so everything he does is just going to fall flat. And then you got Sargeras, who's also this massive character coming forward that really you don't know anything about if you started at Dragonflight. Like, who's Sargeras? Well, you get some lore about him in BFA. Okay, but what's going to happen? What sword? He left his sword here? Why did he leave his sword here? I think people who played since the very beginning don't even know why the sword's there anymore, but it's besides the point. But this is why, like, the story needs a good reset after The Last Titan. I definitely think that.
All of this needs to go. Probably Chromie Time is still the way, but instead of shoving random timelines that mean nothing to a non-Warcraft player in their face, have Chromie Time tell them a bit about each expansion before letting the player choose one, and give players the option to go through each one in chronological order. At the end of each expansion's timeline, give players a unique mount and transmog and currency relevant to the expansion that's current. In a Midnight example, it would be something like 100 Myth, Hero and Champion crests, or 5 Nebulous cores, or something like that that makes it worthwhile for them to finish the timeline instead of just jumping into a new expansion and feel like they're losing out on current expansion progress. If there's no incentive to finish a story, nobody will, and nobody ends up caring about why Iridikron is pissed. This is just one of many possible solutions.
New races.
The lack of Amani being introduced.
Vrykul, man, playable Vrykul. That'd be this would go along with my Vrykul city, right? Northrend, give us playable Vrykul. I'll take that shit in a heartbeat. We need Vrykul. I mean, the ones that players have asked for a while: Vrykul, Ethereals, Amani trolls, ogres. Who else we got? Even freaking God, what are they? What are the Walrus boys called? The Tuskar. People have wanted Tuskar. I mean, those are the ones people want. You know which ones that nobody asked for? Haranir. Like literally 0 requests on that one, but here they come anyways. So Sethrak even have been one that's come up quite a bit. But I think Vrykul. I mean, if I had to pick between the ones I just said, yeah, Vrykul. They're freaking great. I love the big boy Vikings.
As well as the missed opportunity of Ethereals being added 2 seasons ago, has clearly pointed out players want Warcraft cultured races in the game and not new little Happy Meal Disney Haranir. You cannot take us back to Northrend again and not give us races we have asked for 20 years for. Of course, we can have a number of options, but one pressing example would be Vrykul and Tuskar. Vrykul could be for Alliance and Tuskar for the Horde. Factions don't really matter anyway, so who cares? Can be either way. But these races have been at the top of the list for WoW races for ages, and they are heavily themed around Northrend. We now have 2 expansions that have developed Tuskar into a likable goofball race that people care about, and Vrykul that have obvious ties to humans and Valajar Terran constructs we will likely encounter once again in Northrend. Putting in Warcraft races tied to Warcraft that will satisfy the people calling WoW not Warcraft anymore will do a lot of heavy lifting for the goodwill of the player base and to offset bitter feelings about races like Amani not being introduced, Ogres and Murlocs still not being in the game for more than 2 decades. Listen, if you can play a talking winter fur scarf, I can play a crazed up fishman with already existing society, social structures and classes in the game.
I just don't, the Amani troll thing, I don't know if I'll ever get over that. I wouldn't even make an Amani troll if they made him playable. I don't give a shit. It's not a selfish thing. It's just like how did anybody make the Midnight expansion, know that we're going to deal with the Amani trolls to the extent that we are, and think not making them playable was not going to piss people off? I just don't understand like how at Blizzard HQ they ever thought that was a good idea. But here we are. We have Harnir. And a very much Amani troll-centric patch coming, and still no playable Amani trolls. Plus, they freaking remade their entire model and everything, and still not playable. Crazy. Closure. Yeah, this is the story.
This one is very obvious and likely a sure thing, but we need a closure on all of this cosmic bullshit. We are one time skip away from playing StarCraft in WoW, I swear to God.
Can I just say, Scale Commander Sakareth, probably the worst written boss ever. The Jailer actually might be the worst written, but he had like an entire expansion to try to get it right. Sakareth, his post-cinematic was just so silly. Who the fuck was he even talking to? Do we know yet? He was just talking to, was he talking to Demancius? Was he talking to Zalatath? Was he just talking to the stars? I don't even know if Blizzard knows.
It's time for the Titans, Iridikron and Zalatath with her Void Ilk to take a hike. It's been mediocre having them in the game since Dragonflight and cannot say I'll miss them. The show must go on. The story was already placed, let's end it and start a new chapter. The premise of this story would have been better if it was originally built into the game, but no amount of snorted, burnt or swallowed levels of copium is going to convince me that the story stakes we have now have been built in and existed as a natural and organic progression of the world of Warcraft from its inception.
No, for sure
it's lame, it's poorly written, it's been overtaking the lore for over 8 years, it's time to move on. Maybe you think different. We are nothing if not open to more opinions. And why?
I do think that when they reset the story or kind of reset everything going forward post Last Titan, I think they're going to try to lay out like 20 years of lore. Like they're obviously not going to have the intricacies and everything, but they're going to try to lay out like, okay, here's where we want to end up in 20 years. This is the story we want to tell, and now let's do 20 years, 10 expansions to get there. And that's how they kind of want to do it going forward, where they tried to post-fact tell us that's how they did this, but there's no way. I mean, they didn't know we were going to do all this Titan-y shit. I mean, when they first made WoW, I think the Titans were just like this off in the cosmos shit that we were never going to really ever see. And so now we're at the point where we're going to fight them. Yeah, I don't think they saw that coming.
You bash our narrow-minded view of WoW in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Super appreciate it. Gets the conversation going, even if it steers into a different direction than what we like. The world...
I did not pre-watch this. Okay, his fifth thing is we need a reset. I mean, I've been saying it for a while. Okay, it's not pre-watched.
Needs to be reset
I just know this
or revamped or whatever version of you want it, but
we need to get reread.
This last point is kind of a natural progression from the previous one, but it is so important and so not the same thing that it needs to be its separate thing. On top of us needing to go back to playing a fantasy MMORPG and not spacecraft the world of Titan dragons, it needs a lot of other revamps like the leveling, story, classes and such. There are many problems with the game that are deep-seated in the engine that are hard to fix without a Deus Ex Machina story tool level of, and after this whole thing the timeline crashed and our heroes are back on Azeroth, but stuff is not what it seems.
Yeah, I mean, why can't we do this? This is what Guild Wars 2 is doing. I mean, they're basically Guild Wars 3 and 4. They just reset the story. That's it. And if everyone bitches about their mount, give them their mounts. Just give them their mounts. It's fine. But the story, but the timeline is kind of, reset and we go back to the forest.
Or something like that. You can explain a lot of changes like why leveling and chromie time have changed, or why the whole world is revamped to make room for a new generation of Warcraft players.
Yes.
Or why endgame is different than just yet another raid and another season of Mythic Plus to log into daily.
Yeah.
Or why we have new heroes to take over from
game.
Jaina and Thrall. Or why classes have maybe 4 specs. Why maybe tanks and healers roles have changed to not keep us in queue for 30 minutes every dungeon and raid. Why we can have more supports like bards, and on it can go. Every single version of WoW Reset, WoW 2.0 or similar conversations we had in the past can be the follow-up to this world reset. It's clear there are way too many cooks in the Blizzard kitchen when it comes to World of Warcraft, and they need to have a captain to steer the ship in a reasonable direction instead of just wandering around like drunk Jack Sparrow through weird, disconnected storylines that literally feel like what drunk Jack Sparrow dreams about when the rum is gone.
Why is the rum gone?
All race class combinations.
Every race and class combo enabled. I absolutely think this is an expression of what is wrong with WoW today, and I will tell you why I hate it, and yet still why it needs to be added. WoW has been built upon
I'm not sure if I want
many
this.
things. Originally, it was a compelling story and world. Now it's more about crisp and satisfying gameplay. But one thing made it the biggest game in the world during the 2000s, and that is its personality. WoW's personality can be the result of a lot of things. Consistent epic characters people can relate to, recognizable world, story, and lore, but more importantly, to my talking points at the very least, unique racial culture. Taurens being the peaceful nomads in tune with modern nature is what gave them their big, lovable, goofy representation personality in the world.
Right.
Night elves being these reclusive, night and forest, savage-dwelling people with specific rules surrounding magic and druidism gave them a unique feel, so on and so forth. When you start to meddle with this, the lines between racial identity become very blurred and stop mattering. If
another death
Trophex coming in with the prime. Thank you so much. Yeah, FML indeed. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. As far as this racial class stuff, first of all, I don't see Blizzard giving druidic forms to every single race. That's going to take a shit ton of work on their part. Mechanomes, though, that transform into different animals with the Transformers sound, I've called for that for a long time. I'll take that any day. But the rest of these, like, I still think Tauren rogues are blasphemy. I don't know why the fuck we got that in the game. I do think there should be some limitations to class and race combinations. You could always open up a few things, like more hunters and stuff like that. Things that, like, make sense. Like, anybody could learn certain things. Okay, all the races can be warriors, fine. That makes sense. Death Knights, all right, yeah, sure, they can all be raised as Death Knights. But there's some things that I don't want to see. I don't want to see certain races be able to play because I just think it doesn't fit the fantasy.
One can be everything, then nobody is really anything. This is a homogenization process that strips away individual expression within an RPG setting.
At this point, you don't see,
at least when it comes
QX,
to
you're
WoW.
right, I know.
This is obviously our own personal bias and opinion, not something that we advocate people adopt against their own preferences, of course. However, it is clear that that is not where the game is heading, and hasn't been that way since likely Cataclysm, where the first barriers of racial identity and culture have been stripped by Tauren Paladins and Dwarven Shamans. And now we have mages and rogues for Taurens. Soon we will have druids and paladins for undead. It's clear people want to choose the way they want to have their characters represented, and that is a normal human thing. I argue that the uniqueness of WoW was how it approached its race class culture that made them unique. However, this opinion is clearly in a minority, and most people want to play their favorite class on their favorite race. So there, as much as I think this is generally wrong for the game, more people want it in, so who am I to say people cannot have their fun? Fun is subjective for everyone, and that's why we classified our fun on a hierarchy, because paradoxes are fun. Check out our most fun range DPS for Season 2 and have your pick of the bunch.
Yeah, nice video, and like I agree with a lot of this. Obviously, he was going through the list, and it's not because I fucking pre-watched it like many of you are going to say. I said a lot of these things before he got to them, because it's pretty obvious that I think this is what WoW needs. We do need a story reset. We do need closure in the story as it currently exists. We do kind of need a leveling revamp and everything else that would come with a big reset of the game. I think a lot of that are things that would be good for a while going forward. We'll see if they all happen. But first things first, we got the rest of Midnight and then really the last Titan to close off what has been the biggest storyline in WoW leading up to this point. We'll see if Metzen can really cook it up. Nice video overall from Marcellian.